What's going on, everyone? This is Brady Harrington, and you are listening to the Pump Podcast. PUMP stands for Prepare Ultimate Mental Performance. This episode is brought to you by Hoop Culture. Hoop Culture is your off-the-court, unique and authentic basketball streetwear. You can use our 10% off code HCFAM-PUMP. I repeat, HCFAM-PUMP to receive 10% off your next order. If you have any questions after the episode or you want to reach out for new ideas, please reach out to Harrington, HARRINGTON, pump@gmail.com, or you can reach out to our Instagram page, PUMP_pod. I really appreciate you giving this a listen. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Are back, episode 14. I feel like it's been about 5 months since I had last episode, so sorry for keeping whoever's watching and listening out there waiting, but got another great guest on. I have Victoria Brown, who I had the greatest time of meeting with at Cortland. I want to say Brownie, I'm going to keep it professional for now. Victoria, how are you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Are we going professional today? Good. How are you? I'm so excited to be here
Doing
today.
great. No, I'm very excited for this. So now, I always start with every episode talking about the importance of me. I want to get to every sport. I want to cover every aspect of sports and go from there with the podcast. We got softball now today. You had a very decorated career at SUNY Cortland from 2016 to 2020 and graduated from Archbishop Malloy. So it was, I guess, like a quick little background, because we talked a lot about this already, just that whole 4 years. I mean, in any college career, when you play 4 years, there's some type of roller coaster, but everyone's designed differently. With yours, just overall, like kind of taking a step back and seeing through your 4 years, what was that experience like at Portland, and how just overall, what do you take from it now?
I wish I focused on my sport more closely, but
Mhm.
I loved the team aspect. That's something that I could never replace. Cortland softball is the saying is you're a part of it and then it's a part of you. And that's still
Mhm.
something that they say nowadays. It's ingrained in you. You learn the cheers, you love the cheers. It was always fun. And I think something that you guys have said on this podcast before is that I knew I wanted to go to Cortland even if I wasn't going to play softball. That was something that was super important to me. Everybody on that campus loves athletics. Even
Yes,
if you weren't an athlete,
it
you
don't
were
matter
playing a
what it is, they love
recreation.
it.
Yeah, 100%. If you weren't on a varsity sport, you were on a recreation sport or a club sport, and everybody was having the same goal of we want to move. And that was something that I've always loved. Obviously, we both teach PE, so we both
Yeah,
love to move.
yeah, no, absolutely. Now that breeds all the phys ed majors now.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it's the PE school, right? But the softball experience tied that whole piece together. And D3 is obviously weird where you don't always know if you're going to be on the team or not. Like the coach can recruit you and you're not sure if you're not signed in, things like that. So I could have gone to a D2 school on Long Island and it would have been super structured. The coach sat me down and said, "You're going to lift at 5:30, you're going to go to class, then you're going to come to practice and then do it all over again." And there was something about that didn't resonate with me. It felt more like a chore almost at that point, and it didn't
Yeah,
seem like
yeah.
the environment that I wanted. Although I probably, people could use the structure, and Cortland has a hard structure also, but it was just the environment, I think, of the school was what drew me into Cortland more than anything else.
Yeah, and no, I think that's a very important process of choosing what school you want to go to. And it's great for you that you had that opportunity. A lot don't. They maybe just have like it's stuck to one level, but
Right.
you haven't. Okay, like I know myself, and I'm not going to enjoy the sport anymore because you want to go into a situation where, yeah, it might be the highest level possible, but you're going to lose all love you have for the sport possibly, or risking that. And
Right.
like you said, Cortland's structure is no joke either. Like they do what they
They
had.
run it hard, yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah, absolutely. But it's good to have that perspective and feeling about it. And knowing what you wanted. And yeah, this probably won't be the last time we say it, but making sure you choose a school that, say, if your career ends the next day, you would still want to stay there. And that's very important. So going away from the mental aspects really quick, physically, for you, you were a lefty catcher, and that was a very cool thing. So just throughout, even like your high school career into college, were there any naysayers about that, and were there any, even possibly like recruitment wise, or just any coach looking out for that? What were some positives and negatives that came away with being a lefty catcher?
That's a cool question. So a lefty catcher in baseball is just like almost not a thing
Yeah,
ever, right? And so what I say when I coach and when I played was that there's the bunt in softball is so much more used than in baseball, obviously, right? You barely see professional baseball
yeah,
players bunt, but softball players bunt all the time. And for a lefty, you pick up the ball and you're already facing first base. You don't have to get around the ball to throw with your right hand. So in
that's true.
softball,
So you already have
I actually,
that advantage.
yeah. And especially if there's a lefty batter, they're doing a drag bunt. They're not blocking your view. You don't have to get out and around them, just like I said before with your righty. So you could
Yeah,
pick up and already be facing your target. So I argue the fact that in softball, it's actually better to be a lefty catcher
yeah.
and it's faster to throw. So that was something that I kind of learned as I grew with the sport. That was something that benefited me. And I think coaches started to see that. I mean, obviously, you have to have an accurate throw for that to be
Yeah, you
beneficial
gotta
for
make the
you.
play still. You gotta make
You
the
got to
play.
make the
You
play
can't
somehow.
talk big game and all of a sudden you're not
Right.
closing that play out.
Right, but it was I mean, it was something that stuck out to me. I was the lefty catcher in the blue equipment when I was recruited. That was something that made me stick
So
out and,
fair
like,
now, yeah, yeah,
that's I mean, that's my high school colors, right? But either way, it was something weird that helped me stick out like a sore thumb, which worked out in that sense.
yeah, yeah.
But it's it we're gonna talk about injury too. Like, I hurt my shoulder my senior year of college, right as I was being recruited. I've had 2 cortisone shots in my shoulder. I had a partial tear in my rotator cuff, right in the middle of me
You
being
said
recruited.
like before, like like during recruitment, you're saying like senior year of high
Yeah,
school.
this is the
Okay.
beginning of my senior year. Went on a recruit an overnight, and I practiced with that D2 team that I was telling you about. And they put me in the outfield, and I threw so hard without my legs, which when you're an outfielder, you have to crow hop. When you're a catcher, you can throw without your legs and kind of throw your body forward. So I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
using
yeah.
the right form. I was just trying to be the best I could be
Oh
without
yeah, yeah. Adrenaline's pumping. You gotta show off what you got.
100%. So I throw my arm out essentially, and then I go to my high school practice in the fall the next weekend, and I couldn't throw from like here to like 10 feet in
Um,
front of me. And I was like,
what
"Oh
do you do out
man,
there?
what a
Yeah.
terrible time." But I'm a bit ambidextrous, so I would play second base right-handed.
Oh,
I could feel the ball right-handed, but I could barely throw well, but I could throw accurately from a short distance.
yeah,
So when I had to make something happen
yeah,
because
yeah. That's cool.
Cortland was coming to see me. Julie Lenhart herself was coming to see me, and I had to
I
make
gotta
it
be on
work.
the field still.
Yeah, so I played
Nice.
second base, and I hit the ball well still. The arm didn't affect my hitting, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I made it happen, but
No
it was
excuses,
scary.
people.
So
No excuses. You can still adjust somehow. That's
it's
awesome.
it was scary. I mean, I can't imagine if I barely made it through that, I feel like, because it was like
A lot of people
do
could
or
have.
it felt like do or die at that point, right?
Yeah,
Like
that makes
you
sense.
either made it work or it wasn't gonna work
Yeah,
out.
yeah. And do you think so? I was thinking about this too as well, going back to like sticking out like a sore thumb. Do you think that almost just in general with every sport, do you think it would benefit most people to like find their identity, be like, let me find something that will help me stand out. Do you think athletes should do that in order to help their process? Because you could always do whatever everyone else does pretty good, but you might not stand out. And sometimes athletes that want to go to the whatever level they choose and are hopefully recruited to, it just doing what they're good at might not be good enough or be good enough to be seen. You think that's something that people should think about? Is okay, maybe like I'm a lefty catcher, or I'm trying to think of another example. Just anything with I'll go in basketball terms. Their style of play, like maybe it's what they do at their level, could be a little bit different. That isn't
I mean,
normal.
it absolutely matters. I wouldn't say do something like astronomical, like outside of who you are. I feel like I'm a loud person as it is, so it's not hard for me to stick out in that sense, but
Yeah.
trying your best makes you stick out. For softball recruiting, when I was being recruited and when my friends who are coaches now recruit, they look for your attitude on the bench. They look for the way you treat your teammates, the way you treat the umpires, the coaches. Those are all things. I mean, and we look for that in high school sports in general as high school coaches, right? So
Yeah.
those things 100% matter. One story that I have from when I was being recruited was I was on a travel team at the time and we were doing terrible at a college showcase. And I mean terrible. We were about to get run ruled. This coach from a really small school in like Putnam County, I think. She came up to me at the end of the game and said, "Do you want to come play at my school?" And I said, "Why? Like my team just lost. This is awesome." But and she said, "Well, you were the only one diving for the ball when your team was down by 9 runs." I mean, I was behind the plate, popping up bunts behind the plate, diving for them, and that stuck out to her. And all I was doing was playing the way that I wanted to play, right? I wanted to be there, give every
Yeah.
chance I
Because if you
could to my
normally do that,
teammates.
that's not anything out of the blue for you. If
Right.
that's like, if you consider yourself, oh, like I really just went out and did that, someone should go see me for this. It's more, that's just what I do. I can't believe you just saw that. Hopefully,
Right.
okay, that's cool.
So she went on to say, "Well, my team is not good and we rarely are up in games and it would make a huge difference if somebody was playing that way when we were down. We might have a chance to win games." So you never know what coaches are looking for in the sense that
Yeah, there's a lot out there.
yeah, there's so many different things and the simple thing of me playing and having fun and being present was huge to her. So that is like the most simple line that I could say to anybody, like to help if you want to stick out. I don't even think that's sticking out. That is just being like a good teammate, a good player starts from the way you approach the game and what you see yourself getting out of it. I saw
Yeah,
myself helping my teammates out, right? So she saw that. You never know what they're looking for,
yeah,
but
and that's just another day.
right, it's supposed and that's what the sport is supposed to be too. I mean, we could get into that, but that's a whole nother that's a whole nother podcast being like what is sport to you, but
Uh, no, no, that's great because I think with that, either mental repetitions or physical repetitions, that's what makes you who you are as an athlete. So if you don't go out and do that, and okay, maybe I'll decide to do that 1 or 2 games, that's usually not going to get rewarded in the long haul. Like maybe at least you put a focus on it, but you continue to do that. I know how you are as a person. I know that you, leadership wise, you'll be one of the louder players on the team and getting everyone up and being that positive impact for everyone. So if you continue to do that, and this for all athletes, if you continue to do stuff like that, all that is routine to you. And for others who see that, that'll stick out to them. So
yeah,
I
it
like how we
does.
just
I mean,
combine minds
it
right
makes a
there.
big difference.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay.
100%.
So sticking along with, so now you're in college, you're at Cortland, doing your thing. So as a player, what is one, I know I talked about injuries a little bit already, but I know you with college as well. What describe how tough that mountain was to climb and what were a couple of strategies to get you by? Because a lot of people I know or heard about might not, and people should, they should feel bad for themselves a little bit in those situations, but you gotta be proactive. So what were, describe like for your experience what that was like and what you did.
I had broke my thumb, and as a catcher, you can't catch without your hand.
No, no, that would hurt every.
I was a long-standing problem, but either way, I broke my thumb, and it was the beginning of a good season, but it was at first off-putting, of course. It was the day after my birthday, and
Mm,
I couldn't believe that the X-ray was true. And I'm born on April 1st, so I looked at the doctor and said, "Is this an
yeah,
April
yeah,
Fool's
yeah.
joke?" And
I think
she did not find that funny.
at all. Yeah, they're
No,
probably trained to be like, "Okay, I can't make a joke out of this because this
I
might be
guess I
serious
can't
for an
make a joke.
athlete."
I wanted to
Yeah,
joke it away. So in that
yeah,
sense,
yeah, yeah.
yes, my mental state was a little skewed because I was trying to find any positive I could, which
Yeah, yeah.
it was done. I was done for the season and I could either stay in that or find something to do out of it, right?
Yeah, I
Like
was about to say,
search for the
did
positive.
that, before you dive into it, I guess that, like, devil on the shoulder on how to handle the injury, did you was that, like, your biggest distraction is trying to literally not think about it and avoid it and procrastinate?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay, because I
100%.
I've
I
heard that
mean,
for a lot of people, they try not to think about it, and if it's mentioned or ways to figure it out, they don't wanna think about it because 'cause it'll make them too upset and they don't know how to handle it.
right. I mean, I personally talk about everything, so I would talk about it, but I think
Yeah,
for me, I don't know if that made it any better. It felt different than my first injury, right? My shoulder, I could find a way to play. This, I couldn't find a way to play. This is like you're done, you have to wait. And that is
yeah,
not
yeah,
something
there's
I'm
no
good
way
at,
around
right?
it. Yeah, you can't figure
No,
out
I
how
like
to
to
stop
move.
it.
So, not being able to move the way I wanted to, there was a girl who was a year younger than me who was catching and our other catcher was also hurt. So she was a freshman and she started catching in every game and she did amazing. And one of the things that I did was I kind of worked with her all the time because I had nowhere else to be. I wanted to be at practice and I wanted to be a part of the team because like
Yeah,
we said, we still want to be a part of things, which is why Cortland is Cortland and Cortland softball is what it is. I wanted to be a part of
yeah, you're always
everything.
a part of something.
Right. So I would work with her and tell her what I would do, and the
Mhm.
other catcher would do the same thing. And we both kind of all worked together to try to help the one girl build her confidence because we both knew what it was like to start as freshmen. And it's scary when there's seniors on the field. 17, 18, playing with 21, 22, 23-year olds.
Yeah,
And
I'm used
although
to
those are only four
those numbers
years,
are getting jacked up for those seniors and grads, yeah.
right, it's you don't think about it until you're in it and then you're like, "Whoa, that's a huge age gap." Because you hear 4 years, it's not crazy, but high school to college, big difference.
Huge.
She's a great the girl that was a freshman. She's a great player, awesome player. It's not like she her skills were awesome. It was just the small things that you pick up from playing at the college level that are hard to learn. Me and the other catcher that were sophomores, we're talking to her about it the whole time and
Yeah, good.
or we were helping the coach call the pitches, like, or tracking the pitches and doing pitch count. Like, there was always something we were doing that made sure we were making the team better in our own way, right? So that was how I dove into it and tried to keep myself positive through it because I felt like I was still having an effect on the team. Which I mean, me and the other sophomore, we were having an effect on the team. So what we did mattered. And I think that some people forget that they're still a part of the team when they're injured. And I mean, it's hard to overcome that, but it's happening on my high school team right now. Like there's a couple of girls that are injured and we still encourage them to come to practice and be a part of the team if they're controlling the music or if they're
Just
taking
something to yeah, something to just have a
something
role.
because you're still a part of the team. Like you're not just gone because you got hurt. That's not your fault, right? Like that's something that's out of your controllables. So that is how I work through it. I think I just dove into the team even farther in a different aspect, which helped me learn that I wanted to coach even more. I knew I wanted to coach, but I think that pushed me in that direction too.
Yeah, and you never know how you figure out what you wanna do or what's kind of your calling until you do stuff like
Right. It smacks you in the face and you're like, "Hey, this is what your reality is. Here's
yeah,
where you can make a choice." Right? It's like figuring out what college to go to. You don't really know until you step on the campus, a lot of people say. I mean, I personally felt that way too, and this was the same thing. My thumb was always hurt, but I never really put into reality that it could break. And then it was a fast reality, and I did what I did with it, right?
there's nothing you do about it.
No, you have to figure out how to live with it and try to be positive through it if you can.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really even besides injuries, that's with everything. If you find alternative options and put yourself away from that situation, it's usually not gonna work out well. You need to find those alternative ways even if you don't think that's gonna pan out for you at first, but once you might not find yourself the first couple times, and yeah, it's going to suck. You're going to have nights where you're just like, man, I'm not involved in it right now, and I'm not doing this.
Involved in the same way that you're used to, right?
Yes,
Like you
yes,
have to
you can
be
still be
involved in a
involved.
totally different
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
which is hard to learn. It's uncomfortable, which makes us grow as people, and that's hard to do. It's a very hard thing to do. It's easier to say it than to
yeah,
actually physically
yeah.
go out and do it.
Oh, no, I always recommend. I might have even said this before in one of the episodes, and just put yourself in as many uncomfortable situations possible that you can, to a certain extent, obviously. But
Right, obviously, like
it's
not right.
yeah, yeah, like you'll a whole lot more about yourself being put in those situations, because if you never try it, you never, you think about that situation, it's out of your comfort zone, then there's going to be certain parts to yourself, just general growth as a person, that you'll never be able to figure out. And sometimes those uncomfortable situations might get something even worse out of yourself. But at least you'll know, okay, I truly, this is a situation or something that I'm doing that I don't have too many skills, and I need to work on it now. Or it's for your situation, you might have felt uncomfortable having a couple roles in practice or a game that you didn't like, and all of a sudden you did it, and now look where you're at now, and you might have even found out, oh, I can maybe be a pretty good coach too with all this going on.
Right. Yeah, it's you only find that stuff out doing it, right? And it is uncomfortable, 100%. So I 100% agree. I mean, it's so weird to ask somebody to be uncomfortable. Like we always
Yes,
want
yeah, it is.
people to feel like they could be, especially as coaches, right? And teachers. You want your players, your students to feel comfortable enough to come to you when they have an issue, right? But also at the same time, we're trying to put them in uncomfortable situations in different drills that make them uncomfortable so that when they get to
Ready for the
gameplay,
game.
they're not as uncomfortable. It's a weird balance, but it's also like it's when you're on the other side of it. Public speaking is a good example of it. A lot of people struggle with it, which totally understandable, but when you're on the other side of it, it's like, wow, I just did that. I did something awesome. I might have changed somebody's life with my words. There's so many things that can positively happen after. It's just getting over that hump of feeling not in the safest space or the most comfortable space
Yeah,
for a small time, right? Not an extended
small
period,
time.
but
Hey, that's all you got to. You gotta get by. And
yeah.
it's funny you say that. I was ungodly afraid of public speaking for a very long time. Started in middle school, I figured out, whoa, what is this? Like, why am I? I'm quite possibly the most social kid in the school, but I hop behind a podium in front of 20 classmates, and I can't even get a word out right now. And
It's
at
weird.
first, yeah, you run and hide. I ran and hide. I ran and hid. I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. And throughout high school, I had a couple more uncomfortable situations. I'm like, well, I think really just one day I had another presentation I had to do. I usually never prepare for them because I wanted to avoid it as long as possible until it happened and see if I can figure it out. I actually got to talk with someone who, and this is good because you should use your resources. And I found someone online who his name was Roy Roselle. And he created a book about it and everything. Read his book. I actually had a phone call with him. He gave me different strategies. I'm like, wow, it makes a world of a difference now of how I can just talk about it, learn more about it, prepare for it. And now, I mean, going into college, I figured it out a little bit better. And now I'm in a profession and doing this where it's all of it. And now once you get past that comfort, you have some strategies. You figure
You
out,
have to have tools in your toolbox.
yeah,
That's
I had
like the
zero.
most basic thing.
Yeah,
And it's so simple to say, but I mean, mental health in general, therapy is a great tool for that. Like people feel like that's not something in their reach. Meanwhile,
you just
it's in
avoid it.
everybody's reach, and it's where you learn tools for social things and how to communicate with each other. It's so important to have
Yeah,
those skills, and yet it's not something that we all just know, which is
yeah,
why
and
you
it's
have to
different for
learn it.
everyone too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
gosh,
not
yeah.
like there's all like magical answers to everything, like one or two like guidelines to go by. You gotta find your own way. It's that like goes with me in like in math. Like I never
Me too.
like when you show your answer, I never had the popular show your work type of answer, but that I knew my way of thinking though, and I'm like, hey, I did figure this out somehow, but I did not go about it normal.
Right, you took your own path, which in math is hard, which I know too because I'm not
I still
great.
didn't do that well in math at all, but at least
I was
I know
terrible
my
at
way.
math. I
Yeah.
was terrible, terrible. But I mean, it's such a big thing to like have to figure out where how to navigate through situations like that. I mean, everybody I know had to do public speaking in high school also, and although I could talk all the time, right? And then I had the same thing where I was nervous, and then when I got through it, I was like, "Wow, I did that. I loved that. I loved it.
Oh,
I
the
would do it
best
again."
feeling after. Even if like
But
you didn't do too well, I'm like, at least
right,
at least it's
it's
over
such
with
a
now.
relief.
Yeah.
It's such a relief, and it's almost a release of endorphins that you can't get unless you were uncomfortable first, which is
Yeah.
crazy to say,
I
but
love
it's
that. Well, it's all build up. Yeah, it's all build up.
right.
Like whoever's listening to this right now, if you have something right now that you're just not uncomfortable like you're not comfortable doing right now and you really don't think you can do it, I promise if you do it and you get it over with and you there's a chance to do a good job too, one of the best feelings ever of getting by something that you didn't think you enjoyed or don't think you're good at or struggle with. Getting over that, it's totally worth it.
Oh my goodness, unmatched feeling, unmatched, 100%.
Awesome. Yeah, but piggybacking off that a little bit, so you got 2016, 2020 Cortland, wrapped it up there, and then we joked about this a little bit, but I think it actually comes out to be a useful topic, especially at the college level. And this could actually go for any level, but mostly high school and college. When you become a coach right in the beginning of your career, and for you, it's funny because you ended up coaching players that you played against, and also it could kind of be the same thing, but you know them better at least. Like if you coach like players that you played with before, yeah, just please describe what I mean what went through your mind because that's another thing that's got to be uncomfortable. I mean, there's players
Oh
that
yeah.
you battled it out in the field with, have had whatever relationship, who knows what happened on the field, but um, how did I guess how did the players react? Was it negative at first, and you had to work your way in? Were they good about it? And then also, what did you have to do to maybe, in your mind, gain some of that trust and respect as a coach that just got out of college and probably the same age or not, if not younger than some of the players?
I was lucky in the way that the coach that I coached with, the head coach was Samantha Van Doren, who I caught for years. She was a very good friend of mine, best friend of mine, still is. And she helped me with that transition, being so confident in her coaching as it was. She had the pitching aspect, I had the catching aspect. So in that sense, I felt comfortable. Coaching girls that I had played against was odd at first, but it was like I'm a year older than you and I just played you last year or I guess
Yeah,
2 years
it's like now
before
you
because
gotta
of
listen
COVID.
to my all my coaching.
Right. And I mean, I as an assistant coach, I don't feel like that. I don't coach that way. I don't think as an assistant. I knew that I had value and in that I was confident. So I know what I know about catching and I love it. So I never had a question in my mind that they weren't going to listen to me. And the girls that I coached that year were so awesome and they were just coming out of their shell at that time as people and they listened and we learned together. I learned how they needed to be taught, I guess, or how what kind of learners they were. That's what I'm trying to say. I learned what kind of
Sure.
learners they were, which was big for me in the beginning of my PE coaching career because I had only coached 12U before that, I think. So that's a huge, huge difference. Yeah, right. So you're coaching like full grown almost adults. They're on the cusp of being adults and they had just played against you and I think that they knew that I cared. They knew that I was passionate and that's something that Cortland has in general also.
Yeah,
So the Red Dragons are always passionate about our sports and
absolutely.
everything that goes with it. So I think they understood that I was passionate no matter what and I wanted to teach. The thing that came during games that I think they learned about me and maybe helped respect and just trust me, I think, was I always was wondering how they were doing. I wanted them to do well. It was never a question that when we played Cortland, I was at Plattsburgh, and when we played Cortland, I wasn't looking for Cortland to win. Let's put it that way. I was ready for the girls in front of me to try their best and go home with a positive experience. Maybe not even a win, but a positive experience, right? So they figured that out about me very fast, and I made sure of it also, but that's just also who I am. So it was uncomfortable for maybe a game or two and a practice or two,
Mm.
especially when I didn't have much other clothing besides Cortland clothing and I was at a
Uh,
Plattsburgh practice. You know,
yeah,
you
yeah.
always are going to catch jokes about that. And
They're like,
I,
yo, come on, don't be bringing down the field.
right, right.
Uh-huh,
And
uh-huh.
but it's what I had, right? So I had to wear it,
Yeah,
and they would laugh and joke about it, and for me that's actually comfortable. I thrive in that type of situation, so for me that was comfortable, but I could see if it was somebody else how it would be perceived as more than joking, or
oh,
like them pushing back almost, but might not be comfortable for some people, but for me, like, I thrive when people joke, so
yeah.
it made me actually feel comfortable with the players, and I kind of knew that that relationship was growing in that sense, where even though they were trying to poke fun that I was wearing Cortland stuff, it was still kind of something for us to bond over almost, and to figure out how I could find my way as their coach. So it gave me more room to figure out who I was as their coach, even though they were trying to be funny about the stuff I was wearing.
Yeah, and I think that is good to joke about after a while. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
obviously you're not the only situation. I think what I've seen so far and have done, I think the top two things to show to those players for your commitment and like to gain that respect is show them you're gonna put the hard work in. That like with my first job, like that was it was fresh out of college, and I'm coaching dudes that are like they're right before the college level, prep school level, but I'm like, oh my god, like also I'm coaching these like Division 1 players, and I never experienced this before. Like, what can I do to just show them that I know I'm confident I know what I'm talking about, but how much are they going to listen to, to this guy who was barely involved and he's kind of like lower on the coaching totem pole, really. And I think over time, like when I stay after practice with them and I got to know them better and just like did, whatever I could do on the side to just help them on the court. And it just even like they're showing like, okay, like coach from sun up to sundown, he's willing to do whatever for this team. I think guys definitely see that naturally, and it doesn't matter what work it is that does it. So yeah, it's for any situation. If you want to gain respect, I think don't force it.
Right.
I think that's a big thing. I think if I can feel out your situation, I think not going out there and like being all tough about everything and yelling at them and oh, I'm gonna get respect out of you the first couple of days. Like no, you got it. It's a process and anything like
100%.
with respect. It takes time. It's challenging. You definitely I overthink a lot. Just like interactions with the players, coach to player relationship, and also are they actually listening to me right now and what are they thinking of what I said to them and how I coached them up. Yeah.
It's weird. It's a weird position to be in. I mean, and you only know what you have, but what I like to say is, and I've said it to coworkers and players, but that's your perspective, right? You felt like you were low on the totem pole, and they don't even know you from Adam, so it's really you have to prove yourself to almost.
Yeah,
And that's
because
such a weird dynamic almost. Like you're putting yourself in the awkward, uncomfortable position, and
which
nobody
is
else has done it to
it
you
is
yet.
very true. Like no, I
Yeah,
bet like 98% of these kids they have their own stuff to worry about. They don't need
right.
to worry about like what coach is doing for everything and oh, I didn't even know coach was worried about like if I respect them or not. Like they don't care. Like you're any uncomfortable situation, the more you overhype it to yourself or really like it's kind of like really just like whatever the opposite of undermining a situation. But
Overthink, like, and you're
yeah,
overwhelmed with
yeah,
it.
yeah. And I think if you do that to yourself, that's already most of the battle that you need to kind of overcome. So
Absolutely. And you're playing off of their reaction too. That's like the external force playing with you. It's like, oh, well, this one said he didn't understand the drill, so I must not know what I'm doing. Meanwhile, it could just be some small form of miscommunication that feels like a huge ripple effect to you.
But once
Yeah,
you get in that little wormhole, it's like, oh my God, like they don't
yeah.
think I know what I'm talking about.
And I think that happens on both sides, right? I mean, you as anybody as a player coming into a new program of any sort,
Yeah, prove yourself with coaches. Yep.
a young kid going to a new school. It's all that feeling where you are telling yourself, I might not fit in here. I might not play as well as everybody else. I'm not as big as everybody else. They don't know anything about you. And you have to go in with what you can do, and that's try your best, right? And I mean, it's so cliche, but it's really what everybody is
Yeah.
looking for some out of somebody.
What do you think besides like hard work and trying your best can like truly gain more trust and respect out of a coach
Your
from a player?
attitude, your and that's the same as a player as it is as a coach. The way
Mhm.
you talk to the refs when they see you in a game, the way you talk to a player when something happens where there might be a power struggle happening. There's so many
Yeah.
different strategies to
Accountability and
handle it.
adversity.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Holding people accountable for things is again easier said than done because you can you can say, "Hey, this is your responsibility. You need to take the water bottles with you after practice. That's your job today, right? After practice, it'll be rotated. Next practice is rotated to somebody else. But today, you have to pick up the water bottles, and they forget, and then you have to talk to them about that, right? It's something so
Or
small
how
that
they
can
react to it too.
right, or how they react. Well, why do I have to do that today? Johnny did it only once last week, right? And it's obviously you want things to be some form of fair on your own team, but it's it's also just that creates a team dynamic then too, right? The way you as a coach hold yourself, the way you decide to speak to your players, to your other coaches, to the refs, I mean possibly to parents, not at the highest level, but at the high school level you do have to talk to parents and administrators, and those are things that kids watch, and they form their own opinion based on how you behave also. It's a back and forth because we do that as coaches too, right? We watch the way you interact. If you're a PE teacher at a high school and you get to see the kids not only in
Yeah, interactions are huge.
yeah, they're huge. You see them in sport, but also in their classrooms and in the hallway. Those are different pieces of people that are bigger than sport, right? So that that has everything to do with adding up to how you're going to be perceived as a coach and a player, actually.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Just kind of feeling out both sides of it really because it's not talked about a lot and people might not think it's thought about a lot, but you'd be surprised about
Yeah.
how any little interaction people overthink sometimes and want to make sure they put their best foot forward with everything. But awesome. And it's funny that you just mentioned it right at the end. I just got into it. So what grades are you teaching phys ed again?
I'm K through 5 and I actually teach adapted phys ed. So I work with students with disabilities and I integrate them into gen ed
That's
classrooms.
all of your classes or some?
All of them, all of them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So with what you're doing now, you've seen, being a collegiate player, being a coach, and now being an elementary school teacher for phys ed. What do you think, and this could even go back to like your phys ed classes or anything you've done, what has helped? I guess I'll add this as well. This is your first year as the hockey coach for Ithaca?
Yeah, I'm the assistant girls varsity hockey coach at the high school, Ithaca High School.
Okay. So with all that now, so you've gotten softball coaching before, now you're getting the coaching this year. How has being a teacher translated over for you in regards to coaching?
It translates a lot, and it's mostly in the feelings department, right? So I've really learned about how to validate other people's feelings and saying, "Hey, this is valid, but can we talk about how we felt after we did this?" Right? So a girl takes a penalty and in the moment you want to be like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" as a coach, but
Yeah.
realizing taking a step back and realizing, well, she might be frustrated. She might be frustrated. She's got a penalty in the penalty box and she's probably feeling bad. And then what? I'm going to walk over to her and be like, "Well, you shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have done." That's not going to help. So
Yeah.
and that's something I started realizing as a teacher too, right? So the kids come into your classroom, and my thing is, especially with adapted phys ed, however the kid comes to me, I want them to leave the same or happier, right? I
Okay.
want to send
But
them in.
like, yeah, like at the bare minimum, come out the same, but
Right. I
something
don't want to.
improving.
I don't want to dysregulate the rest of their day. That is obviously never anybody's goal, but there's a certain level to when you get to know your students and your players too. You want them to leave
Yeah.
practice at a the same level they came, or some type of endorphin rush. They're upbeat, or they're ready to try something new. They learned something new. They took something out of what you just did, and it didn't totally throw their whole
Yeah.
day, afternoon
Yeah,
off.
you can't figure everything out in one talk. You can't like say you have a 30-minute talk with someone. You can't figure
No,
everything out, but at least piece it together.
right. And you can't you shouldn't jump at somebody when they're already dysregulated either. That's something I had to learn. I mean, as a person too, like speaking to a person who's clearly elevated and frustrated, like I said with the girl who gets a penalty, right? You you find time and space to figure that out. And sometimes giving that time and space, especially during a game, can add up to them figuring it out and then coming to you and being like, "Hey, this is why I did this. I wanted you to know." And I get they open the door, right? So I gave them an opportunity to come to me, made them feel comfortable enough somehow throughout the time we've been together that they feel comfortable to come to me and express their feelings. Because as a high school student, and I mean even myself as a high school student, I'm thinking I was not in tune with my emotions enough to be like, "Hey, this is why I did that." That is a hard human skill that takes some people a very long time to figure
Wow,
out.
yeah, it takes a long time to get that off their chest.
So if we can take the time to give them some space to figure out what they're feeling, that could go a long way in their life, not even just in your team. So that's definitely something that has come from the education field into the teaching field, which
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, to the coaching field. But
yeah. I gotcha.
yeah,
And so I got another one for you. So you're talking about like the feelings department, how
yeah.
you described in the beginning. What, in your opinion, is the most underrated feeling for an athlete that could be detrimental to their athletic career?
What do you mean?
So I guess what's like one like topic or theme, like what type of, so for example, like say the feeling of not being valued enough on the team. Mentally that might take a toll on an athlete after a while, and that might be detrimental to their athletic career. So
Go
like
into their life
if you're
after.
oh no, just like for their time like with the team or even
Okay.
post like, so in general, like in an athletic career on a team, like multiple teams, one team, maybe it could be a feeling that drags with them over time. In your mind, is there one certain like feeling that's very underrated that's not talked about a lot that you've maybe seen already with coach that's like we gotta make sure this is covered with our athletes that we need to take care of before they might go down a path that will take them out of like loving the sport or not wanting to be a part of the team anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many of those, unfortunately, but they affect people in different ways, right? So, and some
Yeah.
of them are heavier than others, but I think the anxiety that comes with performance, like
So you
the
think performance anxiety is the
yeah, and that's so it can be so harmful and so joyous, and there's so many emotions that come behind performance anxiety because
Mhm.
sometimes you push through it like we said and you feel great on the other side. And for softball, it's a failing sport. Baseball, a failing sport. You're going to get up to bat maybe 3 times a game, and you're most likely,
Can't control that.
statistically speaking, going to hit once, right? You have to learn how to cope with failure, which asking a young kid all the way to an adult to do that even in a recreation league is hard to deal with. You're literally asking somebody to swing and miss, and it's it does affect their play. And I mean, in any sport there's an aspect of failure, but the anxiety also with performance of my parents are watching, my coaches are watching, I'm trying to get recruited, I have friends coming to the game, it's senior night, I saw that
Yeah, how many
recently,
people actually think about that
right?
from outside looking in? Yep.
And they internalize it, and sometimes I've seen it happen where there's actually like visible frustration, or frustration that turns into what's supposed to be a good day, like a senior day. It can actually turn into like something that is not a great memory, which is not the idea of senior day, right? And that's just one example, but also your parents watching your performance, that can be really heightening for some kids. I know
Hmm.
in the softball world, you have parents behind the backstop, and sometimes that was not allowed. And I loved when it wasn't allowed, because I thought that, especially for everybody on the field looking at the backstop, sometimes you might not want to see the eyes on you as a young kid. They're not professionals. They are kids. And
Hmm.
it's not something we should have to teach, right? We shouldn't have to teach with eyeball. You shouldn't have to learn how to play with eyeballs on you. It should be fun at that age. So, I mean, that's a different aspect. And then what's another one? Having your friends there, there's the social aspect of that where you don't want to mess up.
Yeah, no, there's so many. If
There's so
you,
many different routes with performance
yeah,
anxiety.
and especially if you like, because I agree. Like I think that's definitely right up there. I always had the issue of not only internalizing it, but every little detail of just like the aspect to a game coming up. Like I got to the point like both my parents and my family were extremely supportive. They weren't those parents or family members that like were too much at games or nothing like that. But I almost told my dad during the baseball season one time, I'm like, listen, man, I can't do it anymore. Like I sometimes when you're watching or when you're at the game, like he even asked me, he's like, "Do you want me to come today?" I'm like, I can't tell my dad no. Like, don't.
Right. Wait, and
I need
and
to figure
it's
that out. I
yeah,
can't tell if my dad wants to come to the game, come to the game. Like, but I always knew like if they were there or not, and I internalized that, and that did give me like performance anxiety and friends being there. Like, I think truly, like when I played 2 years in college, I was if you see my stats at home and on the road, I was head and shoulders so
really,
much better than a basketball player on the road. Oh yeah,
really,
oh yeah. I loved road games because, especially the far ones. Let's go 5 hours out of town. Like I really did. I loved going on the road. It was just our team and a bunch of fans that had no clue who they were, and I wanted to take one on the road from them. I wanted to whatever was theirs. I want to take it from them, but also I didn't have to worry about any family members or friends being there that like put on more pressure or any just outside fan because it was a community college, so there's community members at the game, and I was one of the local players on the team. And when I went on the road, I'm like, I don't need to worry about nothing besides go out there and go hoop. And yeah, so like that was another thing that I wish for myself in Utah with performance anxiety. I wish I tackled that head on and how to like just figure those out internally before I get onto the floor because I it definitely like home game like big home games. I love the support and wanted to show out and sometimes the guy like I was my worst opponent because it was like a lot of pressure on doing that. So
and I mean,
yeah,
I feel
no.
like at some time we all end up being our worst opponent at some point in
Oh
our
yeah.
lives
Oh
with
yeah.
something.
Oh yeah. Yep. And it's very difficult, especially like any type of slump or losing streak. You're like, okay, what they think I'm gonna, I don't set this standard. I think standard might be one of the biggest performance anxieties of this is what people expect out of me in a perfect world. And as like from a coaching lens, you want to tell your players the only people we have to basically prove something to is ourselves and not the outside noise. But it's
It's hard to tune it
mostly
out.
everyone, huh?
It's hard to tune that out, right?
Yeah, I can only imagine
The
with all the
pros.
professional athletes
Yeah,
and everything like that. There's got to be just a little, even if like you do very well with it, something's got to slip through the cracks here and there.
right.
What people think about you and the noise and all of that, and that's why it's important. And these professionals are talking about it now on their platform. Of they go out for that help, and that's a good thing because you're proactive and you kind of tackle those strategies of how to get by it.
It'll have a ripple effect too, which is why it needs to start from the top. And it's
Yeah,
awesome that they're speaking out about it, because it trickles all the way down to little kids. I mean, it's crazy, but it's true. The more it's talked about, the more people know that there's resources and just things you can learn about your sport and yourself through sport, right? It's not just about
yeah,
how well you are and your how well you do with your sport. It's about what did you get out of it and how to interpret that feeling. Like I didn't know how to go to the gym and lift by myself after being in a lift with D3 athletes and having a what's it called, a trainer write our programs for us, and I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
have to do any thinking. I picked up the weights, I had fun with my friends, and I got out of there. Now I go to the gym and I value my health so much, but I'm navigating that, and it's been a 3-year process. I feel like I'm finally in a comfortable place, but the first year I had my friend telling me what to do and I didn't feel like it was right for me, but I went with
hmm
it anyway because it was no thinking. I'm here, at least I'm doing something. And then year 2 was a lot of me figuring out what I wanted to do. And that was a hard transition, but at the same time, I came out on the other side figuring out what I needed. And that's not something you could learn, but it's something that sport helped me do because I persevered through it and figured out what I needed and how I can move. I knew how to move my body and lift weights, but I didn't know how to get there until I worked through it
yeah,
myself.
yeah, yeah. And everyone has their own time schedule too on how to get through it. Do
Right.
you, speaking of like no thinking, if you were to put a number on it percentage wise for, let's just say, just for games, how often is the no thinking strategy good? It's like it's useful.
In what way? Like just go out and play and have fun, you mean? Like in that sense
So
of no
yeah, like
thinking?
if my pregame, I'm going into a game and I'm honestly focused on whatever I need to focus on, like the scouting report or anything like that. But like once you're out there, the best way to go about things is like kind of like being as carefree as possible, no thinking, and just going out there and yeah, just going out like doing your thing, like playing instinctively.
Yeah.
What do you think is like a good balance?
It's something I talk about with the girls on the team that I'm coaching right now a decent amount because hockey is quick. It's
You don't have
fast.
time to think for the most
No,
part. Yeah,
unless you're on the power play unit or a penalty kill unit, those have some set plays, but even then we can set a play. Like I run a box, which is super safe. That's guarding in front of the net. That's a structure. That's where we need to be. That's the team might be a little bit better than us, and we know that, but we can gridlock and have a safe route. And that's not
yeah,
much, there's not much thinking there, which you don't get a lot of cool stuff out of, right? And then we have a wedge one, which is 3 people in front and 1 floater, and it moves around. The floater changes to different people. That is a lot of instinctive, and we could practice that in practice all we want, but you get a feel for it with the girls that are around you after you play with them. Do it in practice, do it in a game, and there's only one thing that helps that. That's your decision making and trust and the time that you put into it, right? So,
yeah,
I mean, there is a level of no thinking. I mean, if we're presuming that we're at a level like that we know the plays that we need to run in in general, is that what we're talking about?
yeah. If you're a player that already knows ahead of time, like you did your work ahead of time, you prepared, you know what to do. Is it still? And it's probably different for everyone, but I've always like the reason to my question is because I see some players that I just know like
They're in their head.
they don't, yeah, like they're overthinking either like too much about the other team, or they might be even the other way around. They're going out there and just playing and it's working out for them. They're not worried about no other factors. They're not worrying about what, they're staying present and they're doing their thing. But like at the same time, both ends of the stick could hurt you too. Like when you're not thinking that much, you don't make the right play. But if you overthink something, then you're lacking trust in yourself performance wise and might not go into it confidently.
I mean, so one part of that you said that I'm dealing with pretty often is we run a drill where, or a few different drills where the girls are split up into 2 teams, and it's a passing play. One team on the left is watching the team on the right, and team on the right is messing up, and the team on the left is like, well, we won because this team wasn't doing it correctly. And what I often stop the play and I'm like, hey, why is the team on the left watching the team on the right? The team on the left needs to be focused on what they're doing. You guys need to be in the moment, not thinking as much about what's going on with the other opponent. And that happens in the game too, right? So you don't want to get called on a penalty when you're trying to retaliate to somebody who already made the mistake. You don't want to be thinking about what they're doing. You need to think about what you're doing, or just play the way you know how to play, which is kind
Yep.
of not
Don't
thinking
let
in a
anyone
sense.
else do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that happens a lot, and we sit down and we talk about it because it's hard not to watch what the other person is doing, and it's hard to play without thinking and just have fun, because we want to be so on top of ourselves and on top of
Yeah.
somebody else, but that's not in your controllable. So I like that point that you were talking about. And then, I mean, sport is fun when you don't have to pressure yourself, right? And part of the pressure is, if you know the plays and you know what you're doing and you have all that and you've done it in practice, you should be able to go out there and just play and have fun and not think, in a sense, right? It should come almost naturally or instinctively. And I have girls ask me, "Hey, should I have made that pass? I wasn't sure if I should make that pass." And I'm like, "Well, the lane was open, the pass went through, so in that sense, you did the right thing, and you didn't need to think about it." And then they're like, "Well, if this, and this happens, should I make this pass?" And I said, "Well, you have to see what the factors are in front of you and kind of play off of what you know." And that kind of like makes them go like this, because I think they want me to tell them what to do, but they know what to do, and I'm trying to get at them without being like, "Well, go ahead," because that doesn't sound motivating. I
No, yeah, that sounds like, oh,
Right?
well, coach isn't helping me now. What's
Yeah.
going on here?
But really, it's not something that we can't tell, especially high school, college, you can't tell them every move they need to make. They have to have
Yeah.
some level of wanting to be there, wanting to play. So, I mean, in that sense, you definitely need to be able to play without thinking in a way.
Mhm. No, I like that answer because there are certain aspects that you do need to like. All right, let me look into this a little more. But also, if you did the time to prep, you should, and what you do, yeah, it should be enjoyable. And obviously sometimes, unfortunately, especially like I always hear so many people just saying, why aren't they having fun out there? Like, because now they're 20 years out of playing or whatever, and they're like,
Right.
oh my god, if that were me right now, I'd be doing this. But they forget about those little things that like the athletes deal with that lead up to it that might not make it as fun in the moment. So you got to make sure that that all gets wiped away before you can fully enjoy
There's
yourself
so many
and
pieces.
perform it. Yeah,
There's so many
be able to
pieces.
perform at a
Yeah.
higher level. That's good. Okay. Well, so you might have already seen this if like listened before. I have it's fresh, but I like
Bonus
doing
time.
yes, yes, yeah. It's bonus time, so it's kind of the like I said, the one and one. The one and one. We got a bonus. I'll give my take on it. You give your take on it, the final, kind of like the final play and everything. Um, and it's everywhere, obviously, and I like picking apart like pieces of it. But when we talk, and you already mentioned a couple minutes ago already about trust. It's about trust in everything we do. Trust is everywhere. It's needed, and it's in a lot of just everyday life. What is if we're diving a little bit deeper into it within coaches and athletes with their relationships and player to player, it goes back kind of to what my question to you were early on how to, I guess, gain respect and everything like that. What's the best way to gain trust? Just being, it can be in general, it can be like a teammate, it could be a teacher, a coach. What have you found? Because I know just knowing you're a trustworthy person.
Appreciate that. You are too.
Thank you. So what what do you have to do to build up trust in any relationship?
Well, first I just want to say it depends on the person, right? I mean, people
What worked
value.
for you?
Yeah, okay. For me then, I would say it's somebody's actions, or and actions could be words too, I guess, but it's like, did you decide to walk up to me and ask me how I was today? Those things like that, when I ask a player, "Hey, how are you?" I am just checking in. I do quick check-ins all the time. In my mind, it's building trust with them, and I love when I get the response, I'm good, coach. How are you today? Or I'm good, this happened today, but I'm still good. How are you? And they seem to be more engaged than just, I'm good, and then walk away.
So in your mind, like if someone does not ask how you're doing, they just like kind of answer like
Yeah,
the question. They don't. How does that make you feel?
it's it's kind of like it's not that it's a person. It doesn't feel like an attack. It's just like I don't think that it's I don't know.
No, because interactions, I feel like even those simple interactions that you're talking about, like what we're teaching, you walk by a teacher in the hallway. Hey, how's it going today?
Oh yeah, those
Good.
are huge, right?
Huh? I
You
see
can
those
say
videos
so little
about
and
it.
so much in a word.
Uh
And
huh. Uh
I
huh.
leave some of them and I'm like, did I make them feel like I because you're rushing, right? You're rushing too. Like I made a coffee, I have to get to class in like a minute, but this colleague wants to know how I'm doing and I appreciate it so much, but I don't want to be the same thing that I fear. I want them to know that I'm a nice person and that I care about them enough to at least say, "How are you?" But I don't have time to ask the question. Those things are just silly awkward, but
What's your best your go to line? Like I'm walking by you in the hallway, we're going by each other,
hi,
and like
hi, hey,
like
how you
hey,
doing? Hey, how
like
are you? Or I always go with the good morning, just like
good,
that.
good morning. Okay, okay. No, it's really funny. Just any like either like the teaching interactions anywhere, like any other work setting.
Yeah,
I've always wondered like how important that can be to people. And
I think it's huge. And I
yeah,
found that people open you it's like you say hi, how are you? And it's like cracking a window, right? Someday, yeah, someday you ask it often enough and consistently enough, even though you only see these people once a day, maybe. For me,
hmm
I work in three different buildings, so I see them maybe twice a week. And then one day they open the full door and they're like, well, Johnny did this and I have this at home. And I'm like, whoa, okay, I guess you
well,
trust
and
that
now
means,
you are in.
and I am in,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
trust me. That's where I mean, it's in depth, but I feel
Yeah,
like
because
that's a
it is
trust.
scary. Sometimes you don't want to open the door and walk in. You just want to check
Right.
in real quick. All right, awesome,
Right.
good.
And I appreciate it so much. Some days I don't need the whole story, but you know what? People trust, it feels good that somebody trusted me enough to say just even the simplest thing. And that's the same thing player coach too. So that's what I meant by that. I know it sounds so weird, but I don't
No,
know.
no, and no. I mean, interactions definitely can have some. Because I personally like when I took a class on it was basically a college writing class, but my teacher took a whole nother perspective on it, which I appreciated. And a lot of it, like he talked about interactions and how to truly listen to someone, not hear them, but listen to them.
Active
Yeah,
listening is hard.
yes,
Yes.
yeah. And instead of just like hearing them out, you're actually listening and not only giving your side of things. Because say if you ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, well, actually, I'm glad that you asked, and then like just 10 minutes straight of what's going on with me and then basically wrapping up the conversation. But you need to, if you're going to have those interactions and I can trust you, I'm going to know that like we can both have like a say in it and this isn't just a one
Or
sided.
somewhere
Because,
to go, right? Somewhere to go in a weird way. Like you know
yeah,
somebody a little bit better. Like it makes your work environment more comfortable. It makes sport environment more comfortable. It makes your everyday life more comfortable when you have a friend that you checks in on you, right? So that's where that came
yeah.
from for sure.
No, that's, I think that I'm happy that you said that because like you can talk about whatever part of trust and interactions. Start with interactions and how you interact with people. I think like did you watch SpongeBob growing up?
Of course.
Yeah, that was
I
like a
trust people
rhetorical.
when they say that, well, our age, right? I know that I can make like a certain type of dry humor with certain people when they've said they've watched SpongeBob.
Yeah, no,
It's a weird, but
you
I love
can
it.
I can still use whatever I learned from SpongeBob and like that episode when it was the daily work routine every day, in and out. Hi, how are you? Hi,
Yeah,
how are you? And like, that's all I think about. I'm like, when I say hi to someone every day, I want to say something different. Like
you want to
I
find
don't
it
want to
different,
say, hey, how are you doing every time. I want to say like with the guys on the team, I can say whatever. Like, yo, what's good, dude? Like, what up, homie? What up?
right?
Whatever. Like, I want to say like, yo, what's the word today? I want to say something different every time because I hate like the basic, hey, how are you doing? I'm good. How are you doing? Good. I'm like, oh my god, like that was like,
And you're thinking about it. You're like trying to
yeah,
figure it out.
like that's it. Like,
It's so
are we
funny.
not cool now? Like, are we not like that close? Like, what's going on here?
I did it today. I was leaving practice at the rink and another coach was getting on and I left the pucks for him and I said, "Okay, like have a good skate," right? He thought I said have a good day, so he's like, "You too." Meanwhile, he knows I just got off the ice, but he thought I said have
I
a
ain't
good
saying
day. Right.
that.
So, and I walked away. I was
It's
like,
already built in. They're already built in saying what they're
right.
saying.
He said have a good day, or he thought I said have a good day because that's what people just say. Meanwhile, I tried to
Mhm.
change it a little bit, thinking I was being slick. I don't know, but it's just funny the quick interactions. I think about them. Why am I thinking about that? But it matters to me. I don't know. He probably doesn't think anything of it, but
But
I
it
was
goes
just
with
trying to be
people.
nice. That's all I know.
That's it. That's it. And it goes a long way, and they all build up to a certain, level of trust. And
Right.
so, yeah, that's the beautiful part of the bonus right there.
Awesome.
The one-on-one. You get those out. You gotta do what you gotta do. You kind of get your last thoughts out there. But other than that, episode 14, per usual, like with every episode, it's a gem. Victoria Brown, I knew this was gonna be. This is easy for us. I think just us going back and
Awesome.
forth. We
We
could
have to
do this
do it
all
again.
day.
We have to do
Yes,
it again.
absolutely.
Thank you
All
so
over.
much for having me on. This was amazing.
Yes. No, I would love to
Awesome.
have your perspective on things. Always talk with you. There's always something fun, new, and exciting. We don't just say hi, hey, how are you?
Hey,
We got a
good
little bit
morning.
more to it. Yeah, yeah. We got more. We got more. We got more to that. So,
Oh
other
man.
than that, Victoria Brown, thank you again, Vic Brownie. What you
Brady
name?
Harrington, Mr. Harrington. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.